Welcome, Professor Manidipa Sanyal, who is one of the most senior professors of philosophy in Calcutta University. And her research interests include logic, epistemology, philosophy of language. And she has many, many important publications, books, articles to her credit. So, once again, from the morning, we have been, talking about Gettier problem from different perspectives and the different attempts to address the Gettier problem. So here is Professor Sanyal to talk about JTB thesis and its limitation. Manidipadi, please.
Uh, uh, where are you actually? I can't find. Yes, of course. Am I there?
Yes, yes, yes. We can hear you.
But I can't see you.
You can't see me.
Of course. Yeah. Is that there is any problem? I think maybe. Okay.
I think we can see you and hear
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Of course. Of course. Okay. Uh, thank you very much, Nimalo, for this opportunity. And I'll try my best to say whatever I can do. I don't know who are the participants, but I think as the topic is JTB thesis and its limitation, so it is concerned with the basic classical theory of knowledge and also some sort of limitation. As Srijit has already discussed about virtue epistemology, he has gone so far. Then I am to go back again to JTB thesis and start, I think. Let me share my screen.
Yes. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I'll start from the beginning, and then I think how to start it.
Slideshow, right? You go to slideshow, Manidipadi.
Yes, slideshow, but yes, of course. Of course. Okay. Is that clear?
Yeah, fine.
Okay. So I think yeah. Now, as we all know, that the journey of epistemology has been a long-lasting journey, continuous journey, and epistemology has been one of the vital issues which has bothered human being since long. And since Plato, it has a legacy to concentrate upon the discussion of epistemological concepts and also some questions which have been given offered by the skeptics. Now, as you know, that this is the structure of what I'll say. Actually, traditional epistemology starts with knowledge of the world. But before that, we have to say one thing, that knowledge is a situation where there are three parties. One is a knower, the second one is a known content, and the third one is the fact. And it is theory of truth, which is connecting the second and the third, I mean, the known content and the fact. And it is a theory of justification, which connects the first one, that is the knower, the cognitive agent, and the fact. This is the structure, actually. And we all know that traditionally it was thought that the knowledge of world can be mapped to the knowledge of human experience. But as we all know again, that there is certain objections raised by the event of dream, hallucination, and the uh, thinkers, the scientists thinking about the artificial stimulation of bodiless brain in a vat. So we have to distinguish between two kinds of question. One is a question about knowledge. The other is a question about our understanding of knowledge. Now, when we think about the JTB thesis and its limitation, definitely we are thinking about question about knowledge. Now, the use of the verb to know, actually, we use it very often. And very often, we also find that we are wrong when we are using the verb to know. Some thinkers say that no theory of knowledge can cover the uses of the term to know. We should remember the distinction between knowing how and knowing that also. And when I am talking about knowledge uh, in this platform, actually I am using knowledge in the sense of knowing that. That means propositional knowledge. As you all know, that Immanuel Kant also considered knowledge to be propositional in nature. But it is also fact that on several occasions we find that what we think we know, we actually don't know. So whenever somebody points out that no, what you are saying is not the fact, then we come back to the position saying either we say whatever be the case, I certainly believe it, or we say I simply knew it, or I say I thought I knew it. So we withdraw the full claim of knowledge and then we speak about some other thing. Now, if we think in this manner, that whatever we uh, think about, or whatever, whenever we use the term knowledge, I know, then I claim something which I claim to be true. If it is explained in that manner, then we have to give full attendance to the term to know. And of course, we have to explain what do we mean by I know. Now, it is also a fact that since 1960, there has been a shift from internalism to externalism. What is externalism? When it is said that there is a causal theory between belief and knowledge. So, to know something means that there is a state of affairs by virtue of which, by virtue of whose truth, rather, there is a connection with our knowledge and we know. So that is called externalism. That means we refer to the external world, and also there is a connection between the external world and also my thought about it or my belief about it. So there is an interconnection. Now, actually, uh, I would like to concentrate upon three primary thinkers. One is A.J. Ayer, the other is Woosley, and the third one is Chisholm. Rather, the second one is Chisholm, and then Woosley. I refer to these three thinkers because, you know, these three thinkers, they were born between 1910 and 1916. So within these 6 years, three of them were born. And of course, we'll refer to Keith later, but it is better to concentrate upon these three thinkers because later has discussed about the Bettier problem, and he has given the fourth condition, and also he has changed his own definition of knowledge. So I'll come to later on. First of all, let us think about Ayer, Chisholm, and Woosley. According to Ayer is from the very beginning, Ayer was very apprehensive about the uh, um, incorrigibility of empirical statement. He was very much thoughtful about it. So he tried to uh, lay certain conditions, which are as follows. P is true, A is sure that P, and A has, in the relevant context, the right to be sure. Now, that is the right to be sure about the truth of P. Now, you see that uh, any correct standard of knowledge, anything which is called the correct standard of knowledge, it should be concerned with these three conditions: truth, and A is sure, that means the belief condition. And the third one, it is called the right to be sure. So having the right to be sure, it is actually interpreted as the justification condition. Now, one thing we must remember, that when he speak about the right to be sure, as he was very much apprehensive about the incorrigibility of empirical statement, so he used the phrase, the right to be sure, mainly in the sense of mathematics. That means the more you can give, the better proof you can give, the more you reach the level of knowledge. That is the standard. That is the standard of reaching knowledge. So that was in his mind. But he gave these three conditions: truth and belief and justification. Now, these three conditions, rather, among these three, the first one, the truth condition, it what is meant by truth? Truth means when it is connected with reality. That means correspondence with the fact. Correspondence with the fact is what is meant by the truth condition. And also, in the second one, that A is sure that P. When what is meant by A is sure that P, A is sure that P means A believes that P, and A's belief is very strong. Very strong means normally unshakable. And sometimes it is also interpreted as A does not doubt that P. Now, that means this is the belief portion. That is, belief is very strong. That means having belief means actually belief as a truth claim. And having belief means he cannot doubt it, because to doubt P, that means by doubting P, I also doubt the negation of P. Belief cannot happen if there are two things simultaneously occurring. So belief is completely different from doubt. So to have a belief means when a person doesn't have any doubt. So that also is considered to be one interpretation of A is sure that P, as Ayer has discussed. The third one is the justification condition, which means that having the right to be sure, it is backed by a process of reasoning. What is a process of reasoning? He meant by it there is some accredited route through which I acquire that belief and I claim it to be a piece of knowledge. That is actually, I'll come to it later on, what is meant by justification, what is actually implied by justification. But for the time being, we can be rest assured with the concept that having the right to be sure has been used in different senses by Ayer. In the first sense, it means that having the knowledge claim about P. That means he is justified to believe that there is no truth that can block the way, block the path. So this is the first meaning of having the right to be sure. So here there is a subtle, he has introduced the term knowledge claim actually. That means till now, knowledge means when the knowledge claim turns to be true. And till this situation, the knowledge claim has not been just proved, or that has not been established. So it is simply having the knowledge claim. It is justified to believe that there is no truth that can stop the way of having knowledge. Now, in the language of the scholastic philosophers, it means that the ground, when it is said that I know that when the ground is sufficient for the what I know, so it it excludes all types of error. That is meant by what when I say A knows that A. So in the language of John Dewey, it means it terminates all inquiry. That means there cannot be any further revision. So it blocks the door of any revision, any further revision. If it is possible that there is no further revision, then only we can say that it is a piece of knowledge. Second sense, this is very important because Ayer at that stage, though he was speaking of the definition of knowledge, he was aware that knowing that P means having the right of using probability. That means when I know something, I know not only that, it's not that I'm using that proposition, I am using also other things which are also in my mind, which I know. So there is a degree, there is perhaps a relation between this proposition that I know and the other propositions, and we can calculate probability. That is the second sense of having the right to know that P. Now, it is also to be kept in mind that he was aware of the distinction between knowledge as occurrence and knowledge as dispositional. But he gave importance to propositional knowledge, because even in case of knowledge, which is called knowledge by disposition, he thinks that even in disposition, there is a stage when I say that I know that something. So knowing that portion is also there present in the knowledge as disposition. That is the way he tried to interpret. Now, let us go to the next thinker, Chisholm. What he means by knowledge, he has also given three conditions, three levels, three conditions rather. One is H, S knows that H. When H is true, S accepts H, and H is evident for S. Now, you say that they are using different terms. One, Ayers wrote that he is sure about P, and Chisholm writes that S accepts P. So what is meant by acceptance? This term also is a specific term. Chisholm actually has used several terms of epistemic appraisal, different types of epistemic terms. So it is better to understand how he has developed his thought about accepting H and H being evident for S. It being evident for S means H is justified. That means S is justified. That means the third is the justification condition. Now, so there are several things to note. One is that as in justification, we are claiming, we are having some knowledge claim. So it is a sort of evaluation. He accepts that it is a sort of evaluation, and he calls it epistemic. Primarily, he calls it epistemic evaluation, and he has used several terms of epistemic appraisal. But we have to remember that these terms are used not in the context of knowledge, but in the context of belief. As the second condition, when he says that S accepts H, that acceptance, that the term acceptance is important. And there are certain other terms, for example, more reasonable, epistemically better, epistemically preferable. All these phrases are used in case of belief, until and unless belief gets the rank of knowledge. There are two terms which are important for him, and he has distinguished specifically all the other epistemic appraisals he has used almost interchangeably. But these two terms he has taken care of because they denote two different things. When we say some proposition is beyond reasonable doubt, then I mean by it that proposition ought to be believed. And when you say some proposition is an acceptable proposition, it means that it may be believed, may not. Clearly, he also he also tried to show a relation between foundational knowledge on the one hand and the belief about the external world. One is directly evident to him, and the other is indirectly evident. So there is a relation between the two. As because there is a relation, so we can try to make belief or to develop or to construct belief in such a manner that it can get the status of knowledge. Now, what are those terms? One is reasonable, other is acceptable, the third one is evident. Each and every term is different. Reasonable means believing P is more reasonable for S at T means a time, than withholding P. Acceptable means just the opposite. That means withholding P is not more reasonable for S at T than believing P. So these are just like the two sides of the same coin. But reasonable has a better claim because it is a positive uh, structure. It is a positive structure of the principle. The third one is very important. The P is evident for S. It means two things. One is P is reasonable. So reasonability is a part of the meaning of evidence. And secondly, there is no proposition Q such that it is more reasonable for S to believe Q at T than it is for S to believe P. It is a stronger one because I am avoiding. I should not use the term defeating because all the later thinkers, they have used the term defeat. But we should say that there should not be any other proposition which has a better claim to be known than P. That is, P is evident for Q. Evident than Q. Now, here I'll refer to two books. One is the Theory of Knowledge, the other is Perceiving a Philosophical Study. In Theory of Knowledge, he has given the definition for certain. That is also another term. P is certain for S. It means for every Q, believing P is more justified for S than withholding Q, and believing P is at least as justified for S as in believing Q. That is the meaning of certain. So what does certainty means? Certainty means there are two things. One is S knows that H is true. Secondly, there is no other statement such that that is more worthy of S's belief than H. Now you find there is a term worthy. That is why I was saying that he calls it a type of evaluation. Worthy is a term of evaluation. So whenever he says that it is justification, he speaks of justification as a type of evaluation. And of course, he gives a hint that it is a kind of ethical evaluation. There is an element of ethical evaluation. I'll come to it later on. Now, what is an evident proposition? Evident proposition lies in between two things. One is absolutely certain, the other is the propositions that are beyond reasonable doubt. So there are different layers which belief attains in order to uh, uh, get the rank of knowledge. So there are different steps that our beliefs go through until and unless it reaches the level of knowledge. So in one way, we can say that it is a bit complicated than air, but in a sense, it is trying to dig. It is trying to unearth what is there lying in between belief and knowledge. That is, I think it is better. It's a better understanding. The third one is Buzley. Buzley, from the very beginning, he makes a distinction between knowing and being sure. Suppose it is raining for half an hour, and then after half an hour, the raining has stopped. But at that moment, when I look at the road or at the streets, I find that some people, they're using umbrella and they are carrying the umbrella, they're walking in the rain with the umbrella. So at that moment, I may say, I know that it's raining. But somebody may make me aware that, look, it's actually not raining, but those people are using the umbrella just for fear that it may again start raining. So, but actually it's not raining. So whenever somebody is saying it, that look, it is not raining, before that I was very sure about it that it's raining. But being sure and knowing, there is a difference. So he makes the subtle distinction between being sure and knowing. So he says that being sure may be there. Whenever I have knowledge, it's a fact that I must be sure about it. But only by being sure, I cannot know. So it is a necessary condition, but it is not a sufficient condition of knowing. He also uh, develops three conditions. One is having evidence. In order to know, a man must have evidence, must be right about the evidence, and be right about the relation of the evidence to the conclusion. So there is interrelation again between having a belief and having enough ground to vindicate that sort of belief. Now, whenever he thinks of, whenever, as Woosley's theory uh, is also very much near, it is better to say it is nearer to Chisholm's theory than Ayer's. So he also gave importance to belief in that manner, and he speaks about, as he has made a distinction between being sure. So being sure definitely is a mark of, I have just said, it is a mark of, it is a necessary condition, so it is a mark of having belief. So it is a mark of belief. So being sure plus something, that is what we call knowledge. It's a specific situation, specific event of having belief, that is called knowledge. So in this way, he has he has made a table of 6 cases of belief. One is being sure and being right on evidence which is non-conclusive. So the first 4 conditions, you see, the situations rather, they are non-conclusive evidence, but one is being sure and being right, having the combination of surety and being right. So one is sure and being right, other is sure and being wrong. Third one, unsure and being right. Fourth one, unsure and being wrong. All these are cases where the evidence is non-conclusive. The other two, fifth and sixth, they are the evidence where the evidence is conclusive. In the one case, there is the being absence of the being of surety and being right. So as there is the fifth stage, the fifth level rather, it speaks about the importance of surety, being sure, feeling of being sure. Because the fifth step is not, cannot be called knowledge because it has the absence of surety. And the sixth level is that where the evidence is conclusive and the person is being right and the person is being sure. So the last one, that is the case where it is called the piece of knowledge. So knowing in his article, knowing and not knowing, he discusses the necessity of the feeling of being sure. Now, it is a condition, according to him, why he says that it is a necessary condition, because he says at this stage, he says that being sure is necessary for the knowledge claim. It is important for the knowledge claim, because when I claim it to be knowledge, there is a distinction between the knowledge claim and the knowledge claim being established, being true. So there is a distinction. What is a knowledge claim? The other is knowing. So we can say, sorry. Anyhow, the first of all, I think it is clear now that on one hand, we have knowledge, that is knowledge claim being true, and on the other, we have being sure, which is simply the knowledge claim. So, considering these three uh, discussions, the 3 views rather of Ayer, Chisholm, and Moseley, we can speak about the classical definition, which consists of 3 items. One is the truth, belief, and justification. In many places, you will find the belief condition comes first. So the first condition is considered to be S believes that P. Second is called S is justified in believing that P. And the third one is considered as it is true that P. So in various ways we can write. After all, we can speak about the 3 conditions: condition of truth, condition of belief, and condition of justification. Now, one can very well expect that at this stage, we have to introduce the Gettier problem. But I think that before entering into Gettier problem, it is important to understand what is meant by justification. So, in all the three cases we have considered, we have just said that I must be sure there should not be any other proposition cannot be in a better position than P. When I say S knows that P, that means no other proposition Q or etc. they should not be in a better position than P for S. And that is the only thing we have uh, learned about justification. But justification is not simply the absence of any statement other than P, and it's not simply that I am feeling sure. So, what is that? It is a fact that in justification, whenever we speak about justification, there is a connection between the fact, as in the at the very beginning, I said that there are three parties. So one is the person, the cognitive agent, then the known content, and then the fact. So the known content is a proposition, and the fact means so there is a relation. If P is true, then you see from the truth of P, we can develop the belief of P. If P is false, I cannot get the belief about P. So it is very much connected with the truth of the truth of the situation. So it is very important that justification is very closely connected with the element of truth. And I'll come later on after discussing Gettier problem, I'll come to the three conditions, the interrelations of the three conditions, where we have got, you can get an excellent discussion by Professor P.K. Shen, Pranab Kumar Shen. You will find that very beautifully has discussed between the interrelation of truth condition, belief condition, and justification condition, and the necessity of these conditions also. Anyhow, now we'll speak about justification first. Please excuse me for referring to Lawrence Bonsor. I have to refer because the role of justification is to be understood in the proper manner before entering into Gettier problem, because Gettier problem has hinted that issue, that where it is said that justification, it can be wrong evidence. So the distinction between right evidence and wrong evidence, having right evidence and wrong evidence cannot be understood until and unless we understand the concept of adequate ground. So there is a externalist interpretation. Actually, justification has two things in it. One is the adequate ground. What is that? That means there must be something, and my belief should corroborate with that thing. That is the externalist interpretation. Internalist interpretation means that I should be aware of my belief being justified. So justification of a belief, that means justification of the belief of which I am aware. That means I have that belief, and that belief is to be connected with the fact. So that is the internalist interpretation. Now, as I have mentioned earlier, that whenever I use the term justification, in what sense I'm using it? Because in Chisholm, we have seen that there is an element of evaluation. Is it a moral evaluation or ethical or epistemological? Now, in W.L. Clifford, we find that it is called a species of moral evaluation. Chisholm has not used the term species of moral evaluation, but he also favors the view that there is some sort of moral evaluation present whenever we have knowledge. And it is Roderick Firth who has denied that it is a moral evaluation. As I have said, again, please excuse me for using the term warrant, because the term warrant actually came later with Alvin Plantinga after Gettier problem. But these terms I have referred to because Roderick Fart, when he used his arguments to show that it cannot be called a moral evaluation, then he used these terms, doxastic warrant and oppositional warrant. Doxastic warrant is that when we say that S has adequate evidence in favor of the object of his knowledge, and there is no defeater at his immediate disposal. This phrase is also important, at the immediate disposal. I am not responsible for everything that can follow from what I know. So these terms have been used at his immediate disposal. The other is propositional warrant. This doxastic warrant, it depends on the person, the knowing agent. And the other is the propositional warrant, where the proposition P must in itself be warranted. So it must be there, it must be true, it must have some adequate ground for it. So that is called the propositional warrant. Now, if epistemic justification has these two elements, then in what sense we can call it moral? But still, they are using, some people, some thinkers, they are using the term moral. So in what sense? Now, there has been attempt to reduce the epistemic justification to moral justification. One attempt is found in some categorical analysis where it is defined that P is warranted for S means that it would be morally good for S to believe that P. The term has been used, it is morally good. And of course, Fart's argument was that moral issue cannot be settled with respect to any physical object or physical fact in anything physically present in the world. There cannot be any moral issue linked with directly evident epistemic fact. They cannot justify any sort of moral goodness. That is the first answer. The second one, somebody may say that maybe there is some non-logical connection. Somebody may say that there is some non-logical connection between moral goodness and having belief justified. So there is an hypothetical analysis. This hypothetical analysis, again, it has got two forms. In one form, it is said that P is warranted for S means S ought to believe P if S's believing that P results in greater human happiness than S's failing to believe P. Now you see, in the definition, it is a hypothetical statement where it's not the first portion. Of course, we all know that if in a sentence there is the if clause in between the two, then what appears to be the consequent, actually it is the antecedent. So the consequent portion is, of course, S ought to believe P, and the antecedent portion is S is believing that P results in greater human happiness, then S is failing to believe P. That is the condition. Now, so it has been mentioned that there is an additional condition mentioned, which has been added. It has been added. The issue of greater human happiness has been added to explain the warrant for P. So as the additional condition has been mentioned, so definitely it has lesser claim to be considered a proper interpretation of P is warranted for S. The interpretation, the definition has been questioned. Second one, P is warranted for S. It has been defined as S ought to believe P if S has such and such duties. So again, there is a condition. Here, the moral goodness or wrongness has not been mentioned, but it has mentioned certain duties. Now, this term duty, it has another element, that is responsibility. But in one sense, definitely there is a sense that duty is involved in epistemology. That is, if something is found to be true, then definitely we have to believe it. We have to say, I know it. So there is a duty. I'll come to it later on. But for the present, we have to understand that if the condition of duty is involved, then again, the requisite ethical condition cannot include any epistemic notion, or cannot be uh, explained within the periphery of epistemology. Why? There are certain difficulties. One is that if it is a duty to believe, because it has been, I have just said that if something is there, something is present in front of my, I have the laptop before me. So I have the duty to believe that there is a laptop. So this duty to believe, the counter argument is like this: the duty to believe as its counterpart, duty to not to avoid the falsity, what is false. But do we, whenever I perform the duty to believe, do we do the other counterpart also? No, they cannot be executed at the same time. Secondly, duty to believe, true proposition, cannot be fulfilled by believing all warranted propositions. Why? Because true proposition and warranted propositions, they are not the same. They are not identical. There are some propositions which may not be, I may not find it to be warranted, but it is true. It is true there. So true propositions may be warranted for me, for the particular agent, because in knowledge situation, you cannot define knowledge in general. Whenever you define knowledge, you define, you express your knowledge in the statement, I know that thing. So there is, from Kant, we know that whenever I attach that portion, that is what we call synthetic unity of apperception. So we know that there is a person involved. So whatever is warranted for the person and whatever is not warranted for the person, both kinds of propositions can be true. So duty to believe true proposition doesn't mean duty to believe warranted proposition. But whenever I try to fix the issue of justification, I give stress on the term warranted. Whenever I give importance to that term, so there is a distinction between warranted proposition and true proposition. I cannot say that it is a belief. If there is a belief, there I have a duty to believe warranted proposition, it doesn't imply, it doesn't lead to the point that I also have a duty to believe true proposition. So there are two important observations which are also said, that reason sometimes restricts us to believe some true proposition, and there are some other false propositions which reason provokes us to believe. Now you can ask the question, what kind of reason? Definitely, it needs a separate lecture to understand why it is said reason restricts us to believe. But it is a fact that there are some true propositions which reason restricts us. The fourth objection is the most important because it is concerned with the criteria of rational being. If I try to explain warrant by rationality of human being, then it is also a fact that when I define a rational being, I also define in the manner that a rational being is that person who has the belief in warranted proposition. So rationality and warranted, if warranted is to be understood in terms of rationality, reason, then of course rationality of a being is also defined in terms of warranted proposition, believing warranted proposition. So there is a sort of circularity. So that type of hypothetical analysis to reduce epistemic notions to the ethical notions, one by simply speaking of the human happiness, the other speaking of the duty. Nothing can help us to understand the theory. Now, there is a third attempt. As I was saying, that duty is a type of responsibility, and responsibility is an important role. I say that if there is something lying before me, I have a responsibility to believe it. I have a duty to believe it. So the term duty, I cannot avoid the term duty. I cannot ignore the term duty. I cannot ignore the element of responsibility from the field of epistemology. Now, the question is this responsibility a moral concept? Because of course, we think that responsibility, we normally consider it to be a moral concept. Now, the answer to this question, that whether responsibility is a moral concept or not, this answer depends on two other questions. What are they? One is believing a voluntary act? And secondly, are we always conscious of our believing? These are the two questions which we have to answer before giving the answer whether responsibility is a moral concept. Now, the first question is believing a voluntary act. We get two answers. From Descartes, we get an affirmative answer. Yes, believing is a voluntary action. And Hume, of course, says that there is no question of deciding to believe. Many things cannot be believed that will, and there are many other things that is impossible not to believe. So it's not my choice. So actually, it sounds better. It sounds better that always it's not we who decide what I'll believe. Sometimes believe there is no question that I just apply my own will force and I have a belief. Sometimes I have to believe something. So Hume appears to be giving a better answer. So the final answer should be no. Now, answer to the second question, are we always conscious about our belief? Again, the answer is no. Why? Because sometimes it is because you see, when I have a belief, I must have some responsibility. As I say, that to believe is to believe something true. So belief has a truth claim. So the moment I say that yes, I'm conscious about my belief, then I have the responsibility to claim what is true. So, but whenever we believe something, we say, I believe something. Of course, we are not using the truth claim in the same manner as when we say, I know. So there is there is a gray area in belief. So it's not, so we have to say that it's not always possible that I am fully responsible for my conscious or my unconscious belief. That is why whenever somebody says, look, it's not raining, then I withdraw and say, I thought I knew it. I believed that it was raining. So I accept that it was not actually consciously what I think I believe. It's not what I actually believe. So there is a distinction. I am not always very much aware of my conscious and my unconscious belief. So, but I have to take responsibility of both the cases. So, how can I come back? Only when I say that I am not in believing, I am not a voluntary agent. I have to take responsibility, of course. But it's not that I always consciously believe something. I have to admit it. Because there are some cases where somebody will show me that what you believe is not the fact. So, as whenever I say I believe something, I have a truth claim. And as there is a chance that that truth claim cannot be vindicated, so I have to come back. So it is better to accept that I have some sort of unconscious belief also. So I am not the voluntary agent. So responsibility is there. Responsibility, I have to accept the element of responsibility. Though I have avoided the charge of being involving ethical evaluation in case of epistemology, I have to take the responsibility that the term duty or responsibility is there. Now the question is whether this responsibility is ethical or not. According to some thinkers, it is prudential obligation. But whenever I think about it, prudential obligation, that means I am giving it a simply descriptive content. Simply descriptive content. But if I give responsibility only descriptive content, then it gets its value lesser in epistemology. So whenever I say I have the duty to believe it, there is some element which is not simply descriptive in nature. So it must be understood non-descriptively. As well as we have to understand it non-ethically also. I should refer to Professor Shonda Boshu, who has discussed about justification in detail. And there I have seen that she has not entertained the Chisholmian definition that it is ethical in nature, but she has entertained the concept of non-descriptive idea of responsibility. So there is some sort of non-ethical element. It is found in epistemology. So it is to be understood deontologically. That is why the Gettier example is so important, because the justification is not simply the person being sure, or there is the belief getting to be warranted. It's not only that element. Justification has two elements within it, and that is why in case of Gettier example, we have found that there is something may happen by chance, by fluke. So in this meaning, understood deontologically, we can give this definition that S is justified in believing P when the person cannot be blamed for believing that P. So here, not being blamed, what does it mean? If we say justification means only in the sense of intellectually not being, he cannot be blamed for believing that P. This not being blamed, again, there is some counter argument. Alston has found that it can go with falsity. So, not being blamed actually has got some element in it, because it is not that it can always go with truth. So, it can go with falsity also. So, there are two things we have to remember, that non-violation of any intellectual duty is completely unconnected with truth conducivity. That means whether there is truth or not, it's not, I can have the intellectual duty. I perform my intellectual duty, though there is no truth. It can happen in this sense. And belief found as on the right track to attain truth has no connection with carrying out of one's intellectual duty. So, in this sense, we can save epistemology from any sort of moral or ethical overtone, and we can come back to our original definition. Now, I am not going into details into the subjectivist and objectivist dimension of justification, and you all know that many thinkers, they think about justification as moral. We can mention virtue epistemology, as you have just said, heard Professor Srijit, and I have just referred that Shondhadi also. the point is the term what be. Let me go back to the term what be used by Chisholm. That it's what be of. So if we use the term what be of, what is it? Is it a term of moral valuation? Actually, normally we use the term what be in the sense of moral valuation. But think about the example. If I say, today it's not raining, it's worthy for a picnic. Now, this worthy for a picnic, actually, I want to say that it's a good day, because if it's raining, then picnic outside will be a mess. So it's better day. But of course, we use the term worthy. So the term worthy, as Chisholm has mentioned, it does mean that worthy means always, it means some ethical or some moral, some element. It doesn't contain any moral element in that sense. So it's time to come back to Gettier counterexample. As you all know, in Gettier's example, we get two examples. One is Smith, Jones, and their job, and having 10 coins in their pocket. And the other example is that Jones owns a Ford and Brown is in Barcelona. So I'm not refer to those examples. I'll refer to Keith Lerer's example, as because we find in Keith Lerer the fourth condition also. It's better we can connect both the things. Now, there are three things: Mr. Havitt, Mr. Nogot, and the Ferrari. Now, suppose the case is that the teacher has many students in a classroom, Mr. Havitt and Mr. Nogot, and on the basis of the information that the teacher got from Mr. Nogot that he owns a Ferrari, the teacher said that one of the students of my class owns a Ferrari. But what actually is the case that Mr. Nogot gave her false information. But at the same time, Mr. Havitt, another student, he is actually owning a Ferrari. So when the teacher says her evidence is Mr. Nogot, but she is not mentioning the evidence, but her statement that one of my students in my class owns a Ferrari, this example is becoming an example of a true proposition. So it is a possibility of there is a possibility of a person being justified in believing a proposition which is in reality false. It is called the principle of deducibility of justification. This, I'm coming to it in details. What's the principle? The example actually says, what the example says, that according to the classical definition, the statement uttered by the teacher, it has fulfilled all the three conditions: the truth condition, the belief condition, as well as the justification condition. But still, it's not a case of knowledge. So why it is said that it is actually using the principle of deducibility of justification. What is that? The principle is this, that if S has justification to believe that P, and P entails Q, and S deduces Q from P, and accepts Q as a consequence of this deduction, then S has justification to believe Q. That means she has a justification to believe P. But what he actually holds is that he has justification, belief for P, she has justification. But P entails Q also. And she has acquired the justification to believe Q. For Q, there is no justification. For the person, for the teacher. Teacher doesn't have the evidence, doesn't have the information that Mr. Havitt owns the Ford. But still, the sentence is becoming true. So there are two things, two generic features. One is fallibility, that every case of justification is fallible. That means simple. It should be written simple justification. Secondly, luck. That is, the justified and true belief happens by chance, under abnormal circumstance, or under odd circumstance. It may happen very well. So there is the possibility that those three conditions are fulfilled, but it's not a case of knowledge. That means the claim made by the classical definition that there are three conditions of knowledge which are mutually exclusive and jointly exhaustive, that definition fails. From this counterexample, we are getting two things. One is that it is possible that there can be a belief whose there and this that belief actually is not vindicated. So apparent justifiable truth, what is that? It is the apparent justifiable truth which is gaining the upper hand. And secondly, a reasonable amount of justification may not be genuine. That is what I am saying, that justification is fallible. That means what I consider to be justification. That is why I mentioned so many things, that in justification there are different elements and all that. That is there. But before Gettier, nobody thought so deeply about justification. That justification cannot be genuine. It is becoming clear because of the interpretation we get later on. So what is the result? We get the fourth condition of knowledge. That if S knows that P, then S is completely justified in accepting P in some way that does not depend on any false statement. Now, who will ensure it that there is no false statement? That is the important thing. So the fourth condition, along with the other three, that they claim, it is claimed actually that this is giving the full picture of justification, knowledge. Now, I come to Kit Lehrer. Kit Lehrer also, he was aware of, as like air, Kit Lehrer also aware of the use of knowledge as my potentiality, as my acquaintance, as my information, but still he tries to explain the propositional knowledge in this manner, that P is true, S accepts that P, and there is a tie between 1 and 2 by saying that when one can accept P, only when there are only true propositions on which that is supplying the ground. Only two propositions are making the ground on which the person is accepting P. So this is the way he explains the fourth condition. Now, as I've said, the term acceptance, this term we found in Chisholm also. Chisholm also interpreted or used different terms of epistemic appraisal, where he referred to several other elements which we find. What are they? I should refer that in his book, Theory of Knowledge, and in his book, Knowledge, you see, in his book, Theory of Knowledge, he speaks about undefeated justification. And in his book, Knowledge, he speaks of conviction, and later on, he changes the word into the term, he changes the word belief by the term acceptance. Why? Because acceptance, he calls it the true requisite of knowledge. Why? Because acceptance is something which has a connection with the correspondence to fact, and acceptance have a goal to reach. This acceptance is a term. Belief cannot be explained in that manner. The term belief cannot be explained in that manner because, you see, belief also has truth claim. But whenever I find something, the fact is something other, I can come back and say that no, I thought I knew it, I believed it. But acceptance means, accepting means it has a strong quest for truth. And it is only possible when it corresponds to fact. So if there is something for me to know, then the justification should be such that which cannot be defeated, which cannot be denied, which cannot be ignored by any sort of evidence. That is where the evidence portion has been highlighted. But you see that here the term acceptance means who will accept it? The person. So still now, Lehrer tries to supply the fourth condition in a manner where he speaks of the responsibility of the knower in a higher manner. That means the knower should not accept any and everything. Only when he or she accepts it, then he will say, I know. When she will accept it, when there is nothing to defeat, when there is nothing to defeat the evidence that he has got. That is the strength of the term acceptance. So he says that the third sentence, you see, S is completely justified in believing. This sentence is important. Completely justified means when he has no counter evidence. And why he has no counter evidence? The fourth point, he says, as because there is no such false statement that can give enough strength to that counter evidence. So in the third sentence, the justification element is there, and in the fourth, there is a connection between the two. So that is the strongest point. Now, I would like to refer to Peter D. Klein also. By the reason I'm referring to Peter D. Klein, I'm coming to it later. He also refers to Meno, Plato's book, and he speaks about Socrates' definition of knowledge is not true belief, true opinion. Why? Because true opinion arises out of chance. That is the same reason. Same reason is he refers to it. That it is also, of course, Socrates' argument is also like Gettier counterexample. He says that knowledge is not true opinion because true opinion also arises because of by chance. So what he says that S knows that P at T1 means a time, particular time, if and only if is a sign of definition, because you know that it is a biconditional, that from the left hand side you can go to the right hand side, from the right hand side you can go to the left hand side. So if and only if means a biconditional. So S knows that P at T1, at time T1, if and only if P is true, S believes that P is evident to S at T1, and there is no true proposition such that if it became evident to the person, then P no longer remains evident to S. So there is no such other proposition, that means P better than P, there is no other proposition. That is why S knows that P. So here we block the way of any false proposition, any counter evidence, and so that is what we try to attain when we call we know something. Now, there are other various attempts apart from Gettier. There are various other attempts: the eliminate lack proposal, no false evidence proposal, indefeasibility theory of justification. Actually, the last theory is given by Goldman, and there are also other thinkers, Marshall Swain, Peter Junger, D.M. Armstrong. They also tried to give the counter example, but as my talk is limited to this Gettier counter example and its the full significance, so I am limiting by my lecture to that only. Now, I come to that point why it is that I have come to Peter D. Klein. So what the fourth condition, it has been extended. What was the third condition? Condition of justification. Now, in the fourth condition also, justification is retained. What is it? It speaks only about the non-existence of any defeater. Non-existence of any defeater. Now, we have to understand what is defeater, what is called undefeated uh, justification. We have to understand, because in we find in Robert Oddie that knowledge is the right kind of justified truth. So here also, the right kind of justification, the term has been already used by Peter Decline. So what is this right kind? It is defined as epistemically undefeated justification. Epistemically undefeated. This phrase speaks about, or it brings the issue, the distinction between epistemic defeat and justificatory defeat. Justificatory defeat and epistemic defeat. What is that? Here, what happens is there should not be any epistemically defeat. There should not be any epistemically defeat. So, what is justification? Justificatory defeat. Suppose a particular witness who was very trustworthy, now he lies. I don't know. So I depend on that witness. Now it is called justificatory defeat. What is epistemic defeat? Suppose I enter somebody's house and I found a full size, I found the person standing on the staircase. Now, actually, I am not aware of the collection of paintings of that house. Suppose that painting is a live painting of that person, and I think that I am looking at the person. That it's not the real person, it is a painting only. Here, if I say, I find the person wearing such and such colored dress, that is the epistemic defeat. So, when I say that there should not be any epistemic defeat, I mean by it this kind of defeat. That means there should be enough, there should not be that kind of fact which makes my statement false. There should not be any counter evidence. So this justification is ensured by absence of epistemic defeat. So here justification is defined in a way which Keith later didn't do. So I mean to say that Keith later has given importance to justification and its supporting evidence in a simple manner. But Peter Decline, he tried to make the justificatory condition stronger. He defined justification in a stronger manner. That is important. Now, as I was saying, that even if we have come to the fourth condition, there are still the three conditions in the extent, the truth condition, belief condition, and justification condition in the extended sense. Now the question is, are these conditions in the new definition, they are individually necessary? Are they jointly sufficient? That is the question. Now this question has given rise to different questions. Is belief condition necessary? Is truth condition necessary? Is justification condition necessary? And very few thinkers, philosophers, they have given importance to this question till now, because we have got the Gettier counter example, because we have passed a long way from the classical definition. Nobody bothers about the necessity of explaining those terms. But we find that Professor P.K. Shin, he has undertaken a survey of using whether that belief condition is necessary. What he says. His explanation is like this, that belief is, if we call belief a condition of knowledge, then knowledge becomes a species of belief. Then it's impossible to say so. At the same time, if you say that when a person knows something he doesn't believe, that also you cannot say. So, what is the role of belief condition? When we understand the role of belief in knowledge, it should not occur in the definition. It should be treated as a criteria of having knowledge. That is the first. Second reason he gives is that belief is always propositional. Now, if I consider belief condition to be a condition of knowledge, then nobody can acquire a proposition without having any concept. Then having belief means having a proposition. Having proposition means having some concept. Now, counterexample we can very well find counterexample in the case of lower animals, because it is a question whether they can have conception. We are in the habit of denying it, but can we deny that they know something? Is that possible? So if belief is necessary for knowledge, having proposition is necessary for knowledge, having conception is necessary for knowledge, then then the lower animal, they cannot be said to have knowledge. But that is a question, big question. It is controversial whether they cannot have knowledge. So whether belief is a necessary condition of the definition of knowledge, that is what he questions. He tries to show that it should be better treated as criteria. Then he undertook the question whether belief condition and justification condition, they are interdependent or dependent. Now, when belief, it is very easy to say that one cannot have justification without belief. We cannot say that we can have justification without a belief. It is impossible. But we can say that belief can be there without having justification. Belief cannot be there. Why? Because justification has a very close connection with truth, and belief also has a truth claim. So can they be justified? Can they be independent of each other? So though justification may not depend, belief, justification it has to depend on belief that be. So Professor Shin tried to give a reformulated justification condition. What is that? A subject would be justified in believing that be if he or she was to be credited with knowing that be. That means he is trying to make it a bit impersonal. That means it's not a case of a particular person, anybody, in order to, if he knows something, then if he is to be credited, and please note the expression, if he or she was to be credited with knowing. That means this new definition, it is concerned with some sort of knowledge ascription. This knowledge ascription is possible when the subject would be justified in believing. Now, in this sense, what is the consequence? If we say that we say that they are to be independent of each other, then it is some sort of, it leads to some sort of unwanted consequences. And if we say that any subject would be equally justified in believing a proposition, yet may not believe it in reality, can it happen? can it occur? If I make it impersonal in that manner, but it is a fact that justification must have a universal character. Justification in general, it should have universal character, though a particular specific in a particular specific knowledge situation, justification should be defined in its own manner because evidence should be there. And if there is evidence, definitely there is some sort of mutual dependence between belief and justification. We cannot avoid it. Now, what about the truth condition? More or less, we agree with the fact that truth is a necessary condition. But what Professor Shin says, that truth condition is something which is not to be satisfied by the person. It is to be satisfied by the proposition. So it is again, it is to be presupposed. And if we presuppose it, then we have to say that truth has to depend on justification. Why? Because you see, deciding whether P is true is the same as deciding whether the person is justified. So in the reformulated version, the person would be justified. That means there is a relation between truth and justification in that manner. So it is also important. With that, I have to mention that as truth condition is not a condition which is to be satisfied by the person. So Professor Shane has said that it is not the necessary condition of the, as because the reason is very strong. Why it is to be presupposed? He says that it's not a condition. It is to be presupposed. It is the first hint he is giving. Truth condition is not a condition. It is to be presupposed. Why? Because the truth of a proposition is to be presupposed when I know that P, when I know that not P, in both the cases. But as as the truth of the proposition is important, then by saying that the person's knowing that P, the person's not knowing that P, if both of the situation demands that the truth of P, then P should be necessarily true. But it's absurd to say that P is necessarily true. So it is to be presupposed. Then he says, even if in case of presupposition there is a problem, if we presuppose, then it is difficult. Consider the reformulated definition. Other ascription, self-ascription, in both the cases, we cannot ensure that P is true until unless we ensure that I am justified. So in neither of the cases, it can be presupposed. Of course, as he considers both truth and belief to be part of the criterion of knowledge, so there is actually there are two questions. He referred to it. His final argument is this, that suppose you consider truth to be the necessary condition of knowledge, what will be his reaction? Just consider what is meant by necessary condition. When we say A is a necessary condition of B, what do we mean? That B cannot happen unless A happens. So it is the fulfillment of the condition which is necessary, not my knowledge. It is the fulfillment of the condition. But in case of knowledge, what happens? It is not the truth condition, but the knowledge of the truth, which works as a necessary condition. So truth condition is redundant in case of the definition of knowledge. That is the strongest argument. But what is necessary? That truth condition, belief condition, they can be considered to be criteria. Whenever I want to identify, I want to ascribe knowledge to others, I want to ascribe knowledge to oneself, then these may occur, these may happen. We need truth, we need belief, we need justification, all of them we need because that they are the criteria of knowledge. So he distinguished between the two questions. One is that, what is it that we know? We can know. Second is, what is it to know? Whatever it is that we know. First question is the question for knowledge. And then it is not a necessary condition for knowing. Second question, actually truth is something that bridges the gap between belief and justification. So there is no distinction between the belief which is true and the belief which is justified. That is the role of truth. It is the role of truth. So it is necessary for knowledge, but so far as we define it, they should be considered to be the criteria, not the definition. So we should say, in one sense, that we have just said that they are mutually exclusive and they are jointly exhaustive. No, so far we know that they are jointly exhaustive because they are the criteria to identify a case of knowledge. But the point is that mutual exclusiveness means what? Exclusiveness means they are independent of each other. One cannot be derived from the other. So they are exclusive means independent. But we have just now found that they are not independent. So if they are necessary, all these terms are actually used in the same sense. They are necessary, they are exclusive, they are independent. Now, in order to be necessary, they should be exclusive and they should be independent. Now, we have just seen that they are not independent. So if they are not independent, then do they remain necessary? That they are not independent, does it affect the necessity? That is the question. Now, how can we answer the question? Now, let us suppose that A and B are necessary conditions for C. Then what we say that A and B, if A and B are not there, necessary condition means if A and B are not there, C is not there. A and B necessary means if A and B are not there, C is not there. That is the meaning of necessary condition. Now, what is the relation between this A and B? Both may be independent of each other, both may be dependent on each other. Now, the point is that their independence has no connection with their necessity, because they are indispensable in relation to C. Both A and B are indispensable in relation to C. That is nothing to do with their interrelation or their interdependence. So in this indispensability in relation to another thing, another item may well be compatible with the dependence or independence of these two items, because they are indispensable in relation to C. In between themselves, they may be independent, they may be dependent. So when we say they are mutually exclusive, it is better, it is a suggestion that the term jointly exhaustive is much more decisive than the phrase mutually exclusive. That is the final comment I can make. And then also the several references I have given. That's what I wanted to share with you. And I don't know whether you have understood. If you have any problem, you can ask me. If you have not understood any place where I'll try to my best to explain it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is really a very exhaustive, wonderful analysis of the apparently innocent term no. I mean, we always use this term in our common parlance, but it has been subjected to philosophical scrutiny in such great detail, and you have presented it in such a lucid manner. Very, very illuminating. I'm really happy. So anyway, can I ask our participants if you have any questions or clarifications to ask for? Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you very much for this thought-provoking and beautifully executed lecture. And I have some questions. The one slide you shared about our second sense of knowledge, which is stating that we do have the
Probability.
right. Besides that probability, what does he mean by probability here?
Probability is degree. Actually, as I have said, that he was very much apprehensive about the incorrigibility of empirical statement.
Okay.
Whenever they started to define knowledge, actually would mean some knowledge we know that, suppose mathematical knowledge.
Yes.
That is also a piece of 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. That is a
Yes.
statement. And
Yes.
if I say today it's not raining, it's also a statement. Now, when
Yes.
I
Yes.
define knowledge, I should define in both the senses. What I know, I say, I know that this is true when I say, I know that 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. I know that it's not raining. In both the cases, but he was very, very much apprehensive about empirical knowledge.
Okay.
So whenever he uses the phrase right to be sure, he was aware of the fact that actually he has in his mind the mathematical knowledge. So
Yes.
the more better proof you can give in favor of what you say, the more you reach the level of knowledge. That is probably
Okay.
that he wanted.
And ma'am, in Chisholm's definition of knowledge, one part is H is evident for S. So here, can we raise the question that somehow it is more prone to the problem of subjectivism? Because if I have some false beliefs about the fact that that mermaids do exist. Now others do not believe that. Ever based on my beliefs or my facts, I can say that it is evident to me that mermaids do believe. But
Yeah,
other,
of course, of course, of course.
so can we
Of
raise
course,
that?
because you say the person, some people believe and some people say, I know that walking under a ladder
Yes.
will bring misfortune.
Yes.
Somebody says. So we call it superstition. But there are persons who strongly believe it and who throughout their life they never go under the ladder because they
Yes.
understand that going under a ladder will bring misfortune. So if you believe that mermaids are there, so no, actually, when Chisholm uses the term evident, he uses the term in between. I have said two terms. One is beyond reasonable doubt, the lower side, the upper side, you find absolutely certain. He
Yes. Yes.
he defined the term certain also. He has actually, Chisholm has actually introduced various epistemological terms, various terms. And he took uh, mm, the trouble to define all the terms, what they mean. There is a subtle distinction between different uses of language, but there is some overtone of uh, degree also. I think there is some sort of degree, some sort of degree of knowledge. Some is of lesser degree, some is a greater degree. So evident lies in between those two uh, epistemic terms, absolutely certain and beyond reasonable doubt.
Okay. And madam, in one of the slides, you told that duty to believe truth and duty to shun error,
Yeah.
they they do not function together. So, ma'am, ma'am, doesn't it make sense? Like when I am talking about duty to believe truth, this particular proposition is actually giving me the implication that we having the duty to shun error. I mean, if we are choosing truth
Yes.
consciously, that means that we are negating the negation of it. That is error, and we are here shunning error whenever we are consciously choosing to believe truth.
No, actually, when the objection is made, it is trying to show that it's not actually moral concept. When you speak
Mhm.
about epistemology, it's not a moral concept. That is, they wanted to show. So they tried to show that when you use duty, it is a duty to believe. That means duty to believe something means duty to uh, not to believe its opposite.
Yes, yes.
Just it's but both of them can be carried together.
Okay,
That's
okay.
because the concept of duty is like it. If something is your duty, then at the same time it's also your duty not to do the opposite thing.
Okay, okay.
That they have just said in order to show that in case of in the field of morality, ethics, whenever we use the term duty, that means they try to reduce the epistemic term to the ethical term. So those what the epistemologists they try to avoid it. So they try to avoid the term duty. So they say that your duty is something which has its counterpart. You have to carry both the things together. But when I have the duty to believe something, I don't have that counterpart to do. But
Yes.
duty, in the true sense of the term, duty to do something has its counterpart, not to do its opposite. But even if you say that in epistemology you have a duty to believe, why? Because if something, suppose I have a pencil before me, then I say that I have the duty to believe that there is a blue pencil before me. So that is the duty. So that use the term I can make. The responsibility, some sort of responsibility must be there, but it should not be ethical. It should
Okay.
be non-ethical, non-moral. That is the spirit. But responsibility, definitely. Whenever I say that I know something, I definitely take a responsibility. But that's not like the moral duty that
Yes.
they
Yes.
wanted to count.
Ma'am, in one of the slides, when you were criticizing reason for
Mhm.
justifying our beliefs, you told that reason provokes us to believe some
Yeah.
false proposition sometimes. And how that is possible? If my rationality is pure and justified, man, how can reason provoke us to do such things?
Yeah, actually, uh, sometimes when the scientists they try to the scientists always they when they do an experiment they use hypothesis, right?
Yes.
So whenever they use a hypothesis they apply the reason.
Yes. Yes.
But somehow suppose they are trying to find out some movement of some celestial bodies, then
Yes.
they apply the hypothesis, and sometimes they say that my reason tells me that go this way because I have such and such theory, already established theory. So those established theory, my reason has it is at par with the established theories, and my reason, according to those established theories, tell me to say such and such things. But
Okay.
actually, it's not so.
Okay.
It happens. It
Okay.
happens. Whenever that is one example. There are many other examples.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, madam. Thank you very much.
Do we have any other questions or comments or clarification to ask?
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, please go ahead.
A very small question. What do you mean by saying unconscious belief? I mean, how can I believe something without any conscious state? Some sort of consciousness is there, isn't it?
Actually, you see, in the field of knowledge, belief has a very important role to play because from the morning to the till we go to bed, we say, I know, I know, I know, but actually, many things are there which we actually believe. And sometimes we do something, whatever I believe, but it's not, and it provokes action. Belief provokes action. But sometimes we find ourselves doing many things which we are not very consciously aware of those beliefs. Why I'm doing this? But we are doing this because you find of late there is a theory of belief revision. Each and every moment in the whole in our area of belief, new beliefs are entering, numerous beliefs are leaving us. That is the scenario of our world of belief, the wave of belief, rather. So we cannot be aware of each and every belief every moment. If somebody asks you why you are doing it, then you will try to find out why you have done it. Then you will find that something which you are doing, actually you are not you are not thought about, you didn't think about something which you have already done. It happens so often in our life. It is a fact. And numerous beliefs are being added to our uh, source of belief, and numerous beliefs are leaving us. We are aware of a small amount of belief. We are unaware of the huge amount of belief.
Hmm.
Whenever somebody will ask you that any question, then you will understand that, well, I entertained that idea. I didn't know. You,
Yes,
of course,
yes.
will say.
Hmm. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Right.
Well, I guess it has been a long lecture and discussion. Professor Sanyal must be tired by now. So once again, on behalf of Bhaktivedanta Research Center, I convey my sincere thanks to Professor Sanyal for such a very, very wonderful, lucid, detailed presentation of one of the main issues of contemporary epistemology. So thank you very much, Manidipati. And
Thank
thank you all the participants. We had a long day. All throughout since morning, we have been discussing epistemology, the different issues, different debates, different concepts, different theories. So I'm sure that we have, got enough food for thought from today's lecture sessions. So tomorrow again, please join us at 11 o'clock. Tomorrow we will have lots of interesting discussions on metaphysics, on Western metaphysics, on different problems of Western metaphysics. So see you tomorrow. Thank you very much again.
Thank you all. Thank you, Nimalo, for giving me the chance. And thank you all the participants, dear participants. So may you have other beautiful days, academic days ahead. Thank you.